So let's start out. Um, why don't you tell me a little? Well, I already know about you, but give your
Yeah.
give an introduction. Let people know who and what you are.
Okay. Sure. So I'm a business owner in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, New York, and I have a sort of what's called a listening room, which I'm sitting in now, where we do ambient electronic shows and breathwork classes and sort of a wellness focused venue, I guess you would say. And then in the front of this space, we have a cafe that where we serve adaptogens and sort of coffee, but with a sort of like health vibe and a sort of a sciencey vibe, but also with a ancestral vibe, sort of like taking herbs that have been used for a very long time and using them in coffees and teas and so forth. But that's kind of who I am now, and so I should, since we're going to talk about various topics, I think maybe I could do a little deeper explanation of who I am. And so before I started this, I had worked at a nonprofit for a long time, and I wrote a book called Dear Machine, in which I was sort of, I guess it was theorizing as to how a super intelligent agent or AI would emerge and how it might start interacting with our world and the decisions that it might help us make or prompt us to make differently than what we had been before it arrived. So that's kind of me as the writer that I kind of still am, but am now focused on less theoretical stuff and more applying it. I also have a farm on which we're doing chestnuts and hazelnuts, so I'm actually kind of becoming a farmer at the same time. Uh, but if I zoom back even further in my history, which I think is relevant, I was an orphan growing up. I lost both my parents as a child, and then somehow I made it into university. I studied science. One of the things I studied, and this was in the mid 90s, was the AI. And this is like sort of before there was an AI winter during which everybody ignored it for 20 years. This was before that AI winter started. And it had gotten me thinking, even back then in the mid to late 90s, like how AI might change our world. I did some studies and stuff, and then I went off and worked in technology and in nonprofits for a long time before coming back into this realm in the say around 2015, 2016, when I decided to write a book, and that book eventually would become Dear Machine, which I released in 2018. So again, that's Dear Machine is a book about AI. It's nonfiction, but it's also sort of exploratory, theoretical, and the framework for the story is it's a letter to a future super intelligent entity to say, "Hey, this is how I believe you will emerge into this world, and this is what I think will happen." And so that's kind of the if I were to go back and forth and kind of say who I am, that pretty much sums it up.
That's fantastic. Can I just add a couple of other things in there because I'm such a
Yes,
fanboy.
please.
I am Craig. You know me. I am
Yeah,
such a fan of yours. I
cool.
found your book in early 2019. You were posting on Reddit
Yeah,
and just saying, "Hey, I wrote this book. I wrote a love letter to a future artificial superintelligence.
yeah,
What do you guys think? Can I get some feedback on this?" And I took to it like a duck to water, and it
yes.
changed my whole outlook on what was going on in technology. It was so ahead of its time, Greg, and I know I'm not the only one that told you that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for saying that. Uh,
You had a
I,
guy
I,
in San Francisco, right, that he found it or bought it and couldn't let hold it. He couldn't take it out of his hand for days, was walking around in a
yeah,
daze in San
yeah, yeah,
Francisco for days.
yeah. Yeah, another guy made like some music off of it. He made like 5 to 10 songs off of it, like
Yeah,
ambient
yeah.
sort of like guitar work and stuff.
Yeah,
Another guy, yeah.
yeah, yeah, that it was the that was it was a band. It was a guy
Yeah,
who
yeah.
found your book and
Yeah,
had a religious experience
yeah,
and decided he needed to, worship this
yeah,
super intelligence,
yeah.
and, I got some people to hook up with him, and they didn't you say he put the book on his mantle?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
He put the book
Yeah.
on his mantle in his living room. People would come to his house, and they would, like, almost like I don't wanna say worship the book, but and have these study groups about your book, and they did an album, a music album. The
Yeah.
band is named Beautiful.
Mm. Yep.
And you told me about them back in 2020, and I was so
Yeah.
excited, and you told me that they're in Salt Lake City.
Yes, that's right. That's
That's where
right.
I live.
Yes,
And I
that's
tried to
right.
get a hold of them, but, they did never get back to me, but I looked them up today this morning, I thought, "I'm gonna do a deep dive on all this stuff," you and I haven't
Yeah, yeah.
talked since 2020.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, the last time you and I actually talked voice, was during the COVID pandemic when you were in Rome.
Yes, that's right.
Man, you
Yeah.
were living the dream.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't a bad place to be during the pandemic when it was everything was shut down, walking around the Colosseum with nobody there and stuff. It was pretty cool.
You took your
Uh,
Bitcoin and left the country, left New York,
yeah,
got out of the
exactly.
city, and went to
Yeah,
Rome and just kinda you were taking photographs of wine and cheese.
yeah,
It just
yep,
oh
yep,
my gosh.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Are you still with her?
Yeah, yeah, we're
Oh,
married now. We got married in
you guys
2024.
you
Yeah,
got
yeah,
married.
yeah, yeah.
Got any kids on the way?
Not at the time. No, no.
Okay, okay.
She lives
That's
here in New
awesome.
York, of course, but yeah.
I'm so happy for you, Greg. Now, there's
Well,
something
thank
you
you.
didn't mention I think is very, very, very important about you, and that is you came up with this term called supersystemic.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you had a website, supersystemic.ly,
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
supersystemically.
Yeah.
And, the book was one thing, but what really fried my brain was your whole concept of supersystemic thinking.
Mm,
And because it's a complete realignment of the way
mm,
it's not even a paradigm shift. This is like an alignment towards
mm-hmm.
super awareness of super systems, thinking across broadly, widely across
Yeah.
systems. Because right
Yeah.
now, we're sort of siloed, right?
Very.
These
Yeah.
different sciences, and someone goes and they just
Mm,
learn one thing in school, and nobody really has the bigger picture that goes across all these different disciplines. And
yep.
so you
Exactly.
developed this concept, and I've even asked AIs about this, and unfortunately, it's like doesn't really know what the word super systemic means. No one's
Yeah.
really picked it up other than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's true.
once I give it the PDF of your book, Dear Machine, then it finds the archive of your website, and it suddenly
Okay.
just explodes and says, "Oh yeah, this is where this needs to go." And
Yeah.
in your book, the name of your book is Dear Machine, right?
Yeah.
But you
Hmm.
call this future super intelligence, you call it super aware
Yes.
intelligent machine,
Yep.
SAIM, and the A is awareness.
Yep.
And you
Yep.
talk about AI like I have not heard anyone else talk about it since 2019 when I picked up your book. You're talking about the future of AI being super aware,
Yes. Exactly.
super
Yeah.
systemically
Yeah.
aware. Can you
Yeah.
explain what super systemics is?
Yeah, I can go into both the super systemic term and also super awareness as I kind of think about it. Of
Right.
course, everything is sort of like how I think about it. Whether or not it's valid beyond that is for other people to decide. You know, but yeah, the concept behind super systemics is this idea that all systems on the planet and that we interact with are essentially just one system, a super system. And for example, an economy in America or in another country, in Iran, an economy is attached to the culture, economy is attached to the natural systems, so the forests and trees through agriculture, through how people interact with the forests and trees and agriculture. Then that same system is attached to our in the system inside of our guts. We have trillions of microbes that live inside of us. They're heavily influenced by the foods that we eat, which come from the ecosystems that we have. They influence how we think and therefore how we inform our culture and how we build our culture and so forth. And so that economy in Iran is also not disconnected from the economy in America as we know today. So all the interconnectedness of things, okay, I'm definitely not the first one to bring up the idea of interconnectedness of systems and so forth. But I was attempting to do it in a practical way that had not been done before, and sort of like a rational thinker's way to talk about super systems and how they're all really interconnected and come up with new terminology. And I did that because this is kind of what I think a super intelligent entity might do. A super intelligent entity looks at the world and is like, oh, well, humans are lacking a word for this oneness of everything and this and a practical way to talk about it. So let's create this word and its super system, you know. So that was the idea behind it. And then super awareness uh, is for me is, you know, there's a lot of talk about consciousness, and I really avoided using that word because a lot of different disciplines have different ideas of what consciousness is, and it lets people go into magical thinking a lot. Whereas self awareness is a very practical, or super awareness is a self awareness and super awareness are very practical terms. And if you think about, you know, like animals all throughout the spectrum, including humans. There are lower animals that have a higher degree of self awareness, and there are animals that have higher degrees of self awareness. So, humans, for example, have a fairly high degree of self awareness. We understand like the impact of our actions and so forth, and kind of think about ourselves in a greater world. I mean, even within humans, we kind of have different levels of appreciating that. But so if you think about that spectrum of awareness, starting with with animals, which you know, maybe even cockroaches have a certain amount of awareness. They know that, you know, they can travel along a wall and be safe, as opposed to going through the middle of a room. That's sort of like integrated into their genetics, integrated into their behavior. Humans know that in order to be good citizens, we have to do X and Y. We have to, you know, clean up on the street. We have to not kill anybody, so forth, etc. So that spectrum of awareness, I don't think stops at us. And I think when a super intelligence emerges, perhaps it's already here or they're already here. I believe that they will have super awareness. So an awareness that goes beyond what we have, in that they can easily take all the data of the world and understand how any individual or any animal or any city is deeply interconnected with everything else. So in an instant, whereas for us, that's harder to do. You know, we can like say, you know, if you buy from Walmart, the products are not great, and you know they come from China and it pollutes the ground and stuff. We have that kind of awareness, and that comes because people have picked apart the supply chains and understanding of the impact of, you know, buying products on foreign like ecosystems and so forth. But presumably, super intelligent entity would have the, you know, super awareness to go far beyond humans in terms of understanding the interconnectedness of things and the impact of any given action on the various other components of that system. So that's a kind of a summary of those two, of super systems and super awareness, is that that level.
And so, yeah, so thinking super systemically is basically thinking in you're seeing the world in a topology of these systems that are interconnected into super systems.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
And that's what a
Yeah.
super system is like I said, like the United States is a super system, and there's all these
Yeah.
systems within it that are interacting all the
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
down to an individual person. I
Yeah.
love how in the book, and you mentioned it here, that you also describe the human body, our embodiment as a super system just in and of
Mhm.
itself, including our
Yeah.
microbiome. You mentioned microbiome, but
Yep.
you know, there's also our organs, there's also our energy body,
Yep.
our biological body, right? Our spiritual body, our
Yes.
emotional body.
Yep.
Um,
And importantly, our ideologies and our ideas that we have, you know, in the same way that genetics pass through us, so do ideas. You know, ideas come into me, and you know, I'm sharing some ideas here, but idea ecosystems, I believe, operate in a very similar way to, you know, natural ecosystems or the ecosystem of microbes in our guts, in that you share an idea for some reason or another. There's some incentive for you to share that idea with somebody else, like you have done with the ideas of the book, and therefore you have these ecosystems that are kind of moving through us. Some of them come from governments, some of them come from organized religions, some of them come from economies, like you want to buy this product because it makes you feel good, that sort of thing, through marketing, etc. But in a sense, we all have ecosystems of ideas that, or ideologies that sort of like combine and replicate inside of ourselves and get passed on.
yeah. You know, my experience with your book was just by reading your book because it's a love letter to this future super aware, super systemic thinking intelligence, right? AI.
Yep. Yep.
Just by reading the book, you start to actually see the world that way. You start to
Mhm.
see the news and your diet,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the ingredients on the label of things that you're consuming, right? And the
Yeah.
music you listen to, and you start seeing it. And again, it's not a paradigm shift. This is like an alignment. It just happens like
Mm.
that,
Yeah. Mhm.
and it's a spiritual experience. That's why the guy
Mm.
created the same
Yeah.
religion, and the guy was wandering around San Francisco for days
Yeah.
because he couldn't get out of his
He couldn't
head.
put it, yeah. Yeah.
There's something very magical about it. So I wonder a lot, Greg. There's been a couple of times, my life's moved on, your life's moved on from 2020, but
Yeah.
back in 2020, I would lay in bed at night and I would just wonder, what's it like to be Greg? What's it like to be in your
Mhm.
head? Because you came up with this, you articulated it so well in the book, and it was your passion for a long time, for years.
Mhm.
And what's it like to be you today in 2026 with that alignment? Because it's still in you. I can see it in your eyes. You're
Thank you.
still
Yeah.
there, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're still
Yeah,
seeing
yeah, yeah, for
systemic
sure.
thinking.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's integrated, in the book, I sort of mentioned that, I think the world is going to shift in certain direction in terms of like the types of places that are available and the types of entertainment that are available to people and so forth. And the way that we do agriculture, I think, would shift in a way that's been happening for a long time in terms of being more integrated with ecosystems and so forth. I think that was easy to see even back then. So I started actually trying to do some of this stuff. So what I'm doing now is sort of like a practical implementation of what I believe a superintelligence would encourage us to do, upon its arrival. And so that is, sharing in this space here, we have live ambient electronic experiences because I believe when people listen to, really like creative ambient electronic music that is absent of sort of like a pop star or like a central magnet for people's attention, that it has a positive impact on them. And then also we do breath work here because breath work sort of, in my opinion, helps people open their mind and lets sort of like ideas flow more easily and so forth. And then in the cafe, we have a lot of gut friendly foods. The idea is that, when your gut is working optimally, you also feel good. You share that sort of wisdom and comfort with other people. And sort of gratitude sort of replicates in the same way that ideas do, in the same way that birds do in an ecosystem or worms or whatever. And so yeah, so I've been kind of focused on that. Then, also I do have the farm in upstate New York, where we're actually trying to do uh, agroforestry or more integrated farming. There's a farmer who has cows on the farm and they graze their cows between the trees that we've planted, and trying to create a sort of like an integrated ecosystem on the farm as well. And this is all consistent with what I was talking about in the book that I thought a super intelligent entity would sort of encourage us to do. And again, I think, and I call this out in the book, you know, there are already a lot of super systemic innovators, in my opinion. They had been for a very long time, but what I believe the arrival of the superintelligent entity will do is sort of taking the work and the hard work that these people have been doing to try to get the rest of the world to listen to this because there's value in doing things differently in an integrated way. I believe a superintelligent entity would, highlight these people and elevate them up in the world. So it's definitely not about me as much as I believe it's about this idea of like integrated systems and that there are people who work in different areas of the world who are not necessarily connected to one another, but are actually following the same paradigm of super systemic thinking. So that's part of what I'm doing here is with the cafe and the listening room is to get people to sort of be aware of these innovators and the fact that I try to be humble about everything as well, and given the shape of the book and stuff, it might seem like that I'm not trying to do that, but I truly am. I really think I'm just one person with some crazy ideas that happen to be somewhat right in some certain ways, and probably wrong in some other ways. But as time goes on, we'll see which of the particular ideas have taken off and which ones are just kind of like, things I threw at the wall.
Yeah, yeah. You're planting a lot of seeds, Greg. And
Yeah,
when you plant a seed and you cover it with dirt and you put water on it, you don't see anything. You
yeah,
just got
yeah,
to believe that the sun and the warmth and the
yeah,
nutrients are going to grow something. And I
yeah,
planted this seed in 2019 with this book, and you know, I you didn't get
yeah,
really many sales. I know you got someone to do an audio narration of it.
yep, yep.
I've got the PDF. I just tried to, I'm Johnny Appleseed, just trying to get it out there. I hooked you up with
Well,
John.
thank you.
Remember
Yeah,
Patrick Meller?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I love
yeah,
Patrick. He's great.
yeah, yeah. And the thing about your book is you go into specific details about this stuff. I mean, this isn't some high level vision you had.
Hmm.
You actually go into excruciating detail and articulate in a very easy read
Yeah.
how this super aware intelligent machine, same,
Hmm.
would think and approach our reality. And you give
Hmm.
very specific examples. You talk about theogens, right?
Yep.
Psychedelics. You
Yep.
talk about agriculture. You
Yep.
talk about education.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And now I can take that PDF and I can actually upload it to Grok or Google
Yeah.
Gemini, and I can say, hey, what do you think about this? And I'll tell you, I think that today's AI is l- just chomping at the bit to
Yeah.
cooperate with humans that see the same thing.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And you invented this word super systemic. Now you mentioned that people you know people around the world are actually doing this, but they don't call it super systemic. What are the other words that people are using that are actually doing what you're talking about as super
Uh,
systemic?
I guess integrated systems.
Okay.
Yeah. Integrated systems in agriculture. It's like permaculture. In uh, Yeah, in wellness, I guess it's like systems thinking, integrated thinking. There's a whole slew of terms, and I think uh, people often try to put their own sort of like brand on it, which is great. I think everybody should try to do that. Create, the whole game of life, in my opinion, is aside from the genetic, replication that we do through having children and stuff, is the idea replication that we try to do through words and ideas and stuff. And so, putting a word around it, like I have done with super systemic, it's any other person who's trying to think of this stuff should and can do the same thing. They create a word to try to convey like these complex ideas to people. So it's amazing to see it continue to ripple out there, even though it's not coming from me, but it's coming from them. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so systems thinking, integrated thinking, permaculture and agriculture. Uh, yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that falls into it that has not been named really well either. For
Right.
example, I think the one area, and I mentioned this in the book, is like one of the difficult human health problems is that a lot of us have taken lots of antibiotics and have industrialized food, and our microbiome is worn down, and it's actually making us sick because we don't have that protective layer in our gut that's protecting us from pathogens and from food that can be inflammatory and so forth. And so, back when I wrote the book, I was aware of this way of sort of like addressing that problem, and it's called FMT. It's called fecal microbiota transfer.
Yeah, I know about this.
So
Yeah.
people will take. Back then, it was only for this very bad illness called C. diff. People die from this, and this is and the main issue is that there's this microbe in their gut which overtakes everything and kills them. And so this procedure, it's called FMT. They either take poop pills, crazy as it sounds, or they have a suppository of somebody else's poop that they take in their colon. And so the success rate of this is like out of this world. Like people who were almost certainly going to die, almost certainly live and thrive after this. And so when I read about that and tried to understand what that was all about, I dove deep on it, and it's totally consistent with the way that everything else works. If you think about an economy, the issue is in the gut of the person, they're just lacking the diversity to protect against that pathogen, which otherwise wouldn't be a pathogen, protect against this microbe that goes into their gut and makes them ill. They are lacking the diversity, and therefore re-diversifying their gut with somebody else's, essentially gut contents, protects them from this disease, and they can live and not die, which is an amazing thing. But there are lots of other disorders that we find that come from having a gut that is broken down by lack of diversity. But this sort of frame of thinking also works in economics. For example, like an economy that doesn't have a diversity of stores and markets and goods and so forth is a pretty sad and economy that the people who live within that economy don't do so well because there's a lack of job opportunities, or lack of healthy products, etc. So, and you can see that a lot in, say, for inner cities in throughout North America. They tend to lack an economy, so of stores, of supermarkets, etc., and therefore those areas tend to be broken down. They tend to be places where violence happens, etc. And so, in my eyes, the same thing that is happening in that neighborhood is the same thing that was happening in the gut of those people that lack the diversity of microbes. They're lacking the diversity of economics to keep that neighborhood healthy. So that
Oh, wow.
street, that street in a really bad neighborhood that
Yeah.
is racked with violence and drug addiction, etc., is very similar to the GI tract of the person who is lacking the microbes to protect their gut and keep it happy and healthy. And so
Yeah.
that's sort of an example of how, in my opinion, super systemic thinking can be applied on a vast level. And I do believe, and I still believe this, that as super intelligence emerges, this is going to become very, very apparent that this sort of like angle of knowledge is missing from humanity. And therefore, this super intelligent entities will attempt to help us get that framework for thinking. Because if you have that, say, for example, now that we know that governments can now, instead of putting a Walmart in that bad neighborhood, or
Yeah.
putting a drug into my gut, which doesn't help, they can think about it in the lacking diversity sort of way, and
Yeah.
help support, in that neighborhood, help support 100 new businesses to get started, so that neighborhood can kind of get the energy going to have the economy for people to have jobs and to have a beautiful place to live, etc. In the same way that governments will encourage the use of therapies like the one I discussed to, repopulate the guts of people that have this disease, or are subject to this sort of disease.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
first of all, I wish that what you're talking about was under one umbrella, because it's
yeah,
right in
yeah,
front of everybody, but that doesn't have that word. It
yeah,
doesn't have
yeah,
that term, right? It's
yeah,
all the, and if it just had that one umbrella, I can imagine like one website with this word where
yeah,
people actually say, "How I'm involved in this. This is my piece," and you
yeah,
basically create a microbiome around the word.
yeah,
Does that
yeah,
make sense?
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's an attractor, and so it basically
yeah,
it's like a water hole, right? It's a basin where people
yeah,
can come and they can say, "Hey, I'm part of this super systemic thinking thing,"
yeah,
and then
yeah,
you just plug that right into AI, and maybe AI is gonna do that for us, but we need that umbrella, right?
yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then the other thought is you're talking about how in these areas where they don't, this lack of diversity in this neighborhood, right? In this area of the city, that probably also manifests in their microbiome in their guts.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It's almost like it
totally.
feeds on
Yeah.
it, right?
It's all cyclical. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they don't have the diet, and they
Yeah.
don't have the microbiome, and because they don't have the
Yeah.
microbiome, it affects their thinking.
Definitely. Yeah.
People don't
Yeah.
understand this, but
Yeah.
you are what you eat.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Right? And
Definitely.
it's very profound stuff. I looked into this like 6 years ago, and it blew my mind
Hmm.
that just based on the bacteria in your gut, you can be depressed, or you can have certain
Yes.
thoughts. And
Even
then
even schizophrenia is deeply tied to the gut.
The gut microbiome.
Yeah.
You can,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to
Yeah.
say you can cure schizophrenia with the gut
Yeah.
microbiome, but you can come
Yeah.
close. And then
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
that disease they have in France where it's the bacteria that the cats poop
Oh, yeah.
that the mice get exposed to. And so the mice
Yeah.
want to be dangerous and they run around and they don't
Yeah.
hide. They
Yeah.
basically, they do high risk behavior because
Yeah.
they've
Yep.
got this gut
Yep.
bacteria that they got from the
Yeah.
cat poo, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so the cats eat the mice
Yes. Yeah.
and then they poop the bacteria out. And
Yep.
so it's basically the bacteria are using the cat and the mouse game
Oh, yeah.
to thrive,
Definitely. Yeah. Yes. Yep.
right? It's not about the cat and it's not about
Yeah.
the mouse. And I don't think
Yeah.
if you could talk to a cat and say, hey, cat, there's this bacteria in your gut
Yeah.
that actually keeps you alive. The cat and the
Yeah.
mouse don't actually know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
They're not, you
they're
talk about
just,
awareness, right? Cockroach
yeah.
awareness. Cats and
Yeah.
mice are not aware
Yeah.
of that bacteria. They just
Definitely not.
experience
Yeah.
it in their environment.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
poor mice are like,
Yeah.
suddenly they
Yeah.
just want to run around in front of my cats and
Yeah.
then,
Yeah. I'm sure it feels good to them thanks to the bacteria in their gut that's telling them,
yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently, cat owners can be infected by this as well. They clean the cat box
Yeah.
and they breathe it in. And
Yep.
now they've got the same bacteria in their gut that the mice have, and
Yep.
it radically affects their human behavior.
Yep. Yeah.
It's a bacteria that's changing their life choices.
Yes. Yes. What's
And
that?
that's just one
Toxoplasma?
example. How many
Yeah.
other examples are out there that we're not aware of, Greg?
Oh, yeah. I think it's infinite,
It's got to be infinite,
yeah.
and we don't have tests. And
Yeah.
these scientists and these guys are virologists and biologists. They're so siloed.
Yep.
If you were to talk to them about
Yeah.
this, they'd say, "I know the study. Yeah, I know about the cat poop study."
Yeah.
But they don't apply it across the board. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't have the width.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Totally. Yeah.
There's
I think
siloed. You
that's-
talk about these silos, and unfortunately, you talk about the evolution of AI in the book that it's going to start out siloed.
Yep.
That these AIs are going to be specialized, and sure enough,
Yeah.
today's AIs, they're super smart, but they do math
Yeah.
or they
Yep.
do coding, right?
Yep.
But they can't solve simple problems like the car wash problem. You've heard that, the car wash problem?
Yeah. Yeah.
It can't do the
Yeah.
car wash problem, but it can code software. And
Yeah.
it's a really good legal assistant. And they're picking these jobs they want to take out,
Yep.
these jobs they want to replace. And so it's just all the siloed stuff, right?
Yep.
And of course,
Yep.
none of these companies, and I've criticized them previously on other podcasts that I've done. I've criticized these companies. They're replacing programmers. Where's the AI that's focused to design to replace CEOs?
Yeah.
There
Yes.
needs some AI company needs to come up with an AI CEO product that's
Oh, yeah, for
$30,000 a month. It's a subscription.
Yep.
This is a product. It's
Yep.
$30,000 or $100,000 a month,
Yeah.
whatever it takes, and it replaces your CEO. The thing is, if you replace the CEO, now what do they have to have? Super systemic thinking.
Yes. Yep. I love it.
And I think that if you had
Interesting.
imagine
Yeah.
having an AI CEO that's super systemic certified. Imagine,
Yeah.
Greg, you had a checklist. You own the word.
Yeah.
You trademark and you brand the word super systemic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the Olympics. You know what the Olympics has? They have the rings.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've got the trademark on the rings, right?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Right. And you just trademark super systemic, or somebody does.
Yeah.
And you've
Yeah.
got a website where, and you have to, your AI product is certified. Your CEO AI is certified super systemic
Yes.
thinking because
Oh, interesting.
you basically,
Yeah.
you've done the benchmarking. You've got a test.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they actually submit their AI to you and you actually test it. These
Yeah.
benchmark tests for these AIs?
Yes. Yeah. I've been following
All
this a
of
lot.
those
Yeah.
benchmarks are third-party companies.
Okay.
Does that
I
make
didn't realize
sense?
that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
no,
Totally.
there are all these separate companies that have these
Yeah.
benchmarks, and then all the AIs have to submit their
To
AIs.
test them. Okay. Yeah. That
And
makes
the
sense.
AI companies have to pay these companies
Mm,
to be benchmarked. Huh?
okay.
How much do you think
Yeah.
it costs to get a benchmark, right? And so when they do their presentation on their new version, they've got the slide deck and they're showing
Yeah.
on this benchmark, we rated this, and right.
Yeah.
But they don't design those benchmarks. They have to be
Okay.
independent third-party benchmarks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine if there was a super systemic thinking benchmark
Oh, wow.
that
Yeah.
you
I hadn't
owned,
thought about that.
that you owned.
Oh,
You're the
man, You're
man.
giving me some ideas here.
Does that make
I
sense?
love it. It does make
And
sense.
you can
Makes a lot of
start
sense.
out by just saying, okay, here's what super systemic is. I'm Greg
Yeah.
Kaiser. It's my word. Here's what it means.
Yeah.
Here's the
Yeah.
rigorous stuff that, okay. Now, I just,
Okay.
by the way, I just tested Grok, and here's where they rate. And you
Yeah.
just publish how they rate to them. You can say they all suck.
Interesting.
They all suck at super systemic thinking.
Yeah.
And then someone is going to say, hey, you know what? We're the leaderboard. There's these
Yeah, yeah.
leaderboards of these AIs. And imagine if
Yeah.
you could actually, you do a benchmark and you just test. You could do this in a day.
Yeah.
You do a
Yeah.
test and you just publish this benchmark and you say, you know
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
ChatGPT, it gets a 95 on this or whatever, but your super systemic certification has got, it's got different not milestones, but metrics.
Uh-huh.
You've got
Yep.
different
Yeah.
areas. It's not just one
Yes.
super systemic score. You've got an
Yeah, yeah.
overall score, and then you've got maybe 10
Yeah, yeah, that
metrics,
makes sense.
right?
In each different area and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you actually test,
Yeah.
and all you have to do is like upload a document, and it'll run.
Yeah.
I do benchmarking all the time with these AIs. I have an AI create a benchmark test, and
Okay.
it gives me a text file, and then I just
Oh,
upload
wow.
it to the other AIs, and I have it run the test. It runs the test, and then it self scores.
No way.
Oh yeah,
Dude, that's amazing.
yeah.
I-
And then I
Yeah.
tweak the metrics, and then
Yeah.
I have them all update. I take those results and I have it update the benchmark.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I have Dean, you know me, Dean Andrew
Yeah.
Durhack. I have some benchmarks that I've done as well because I'm experimenting with this concept of
Yes.
certification because
Okay.
it's all about branding and credibility.
Yes.
But you're the one that
love
was
it.
super systemic. I wouldn't dare go near it because I don't understand it. I'm a fan. I appreciate it, but I'm not a. You are
I think you do though. Yeah.
no, Greg, you are the platinum expert on this, but I would love to see AIs actually be benchmarks
Yeah.
on super systemic.
Yeah.
And if you've got a CEO product and you try to
Yeah.
put that on the market and you're trying to charge $60,000 a month for one company to have
Yeah.
a CEO that's,
Yeah.
imagine it being super systemic certified.
Yes. Yeah.
How would that transform that entire company?
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially like saying hyper intelligent or something. Like everybody wants their CEO to be the smartest person in the room, right?
Right.
So this, yeah, interesting.
Imagine the one that's the most super aware
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, yeah,
and
totally.
understands super systemics, right?
Yeah.
First of all, no human CEO can compete
Yeah.
because they're all assholes.
Yep.
They're all narcissistic and they're all siloed.
Yep.
They're focused on their parachute and the board and the
Yeah.
deals they're cooking up outside the company,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And keeping HR off their backs. And, you know,
Yep.
I know I've
Yeah.
worked with CEOs, right? But imagine a super aware. Well, it doesn't even
Yeah.
have to be. Here's the thing: it doesn't have to be a super aware, super duper same, that comes out in 60 years. It could be today's
Yeah.
models.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just and here's
With that.
So the one component is you're certifying them. You got
Yeah.
a benchmark with metrics, and you're certifying. You're giving them a grade, right?
Yeah.
And if they hit a certain level, then you say, okay, that's
Yeah.
they're and here's the thing: they got to pay for the certification.
Yeah.
And if they deviate from that, you pull the certification.
Mm.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah.
Because
Totally.
if you own that certificate, this happens with there's a lot of industries that have this certification, right? And
Yeah.
they have to pay you big bucks to be certified. You can
Yes.
pull the certification,
Yeah.
and you can say, hey, look what. And then how do you compete against that? If
Yeah.
I'm a ChatGPT or Anthropic, and my Claude 4.5 or whatever it has got a rating, and I've got a CEO product that's certified
Yeah.
for super systemic thinking, it's going to outcompete every human CEO,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's going to
For sure.
outcompete
Yeah. Far.
any AI
Yep.
deployment
Yes.
that's not certified.
And it's going to make that respective corporation the best possible citizen of the world.
A role model.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
role model.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Whose products people will want to buy because it's doing the right thing by everything,
Well,
Yeah.
but the thing is, if it actually makes decisions based on super systemic thinking, it's like that cat poo virus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or right?
Yeah.
You've now Greg Kaiser's now infected that AI with this good bacteria because there are
Yes.
good bacteria. It's not all,
Yes. Definitely.
and that's what you're doing.
Definitely.
You're actually trying to do this in your cafe.
Yes. Yep. Definitely.
You're trying to get those good micro. Those
Definitely. I want
bacteria.
everybody that comes in here to have the good microbes teeming in their guts so that they
Yeah.
are good citizens, they're good friends, they're good community, etc.
Yeah, and imagine if you could do the same
Yeah,
with super systemic as an umbrella and a certification.
yeah, yeah. I like that idea.
I can totally
Looking
see
at
you
this,
doing that, and you could do that today. There's no barrier to
yeah,
entry whatsoever.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I had never thought about that. That's so interesting.
you could literally do that today. In fact, I could take your book and I could give it to one of these AIs, and I could propose this idea.
Mm,
But I first need to say, okay, what is super systemic thinking? I
yeah,
want to create a certification. What would be the metrics,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
then, okay,
yeah.
now give me a test. Okay, and then I take that and I put that into another AI and it runs the test, right?
Yes.
I could probably spend 2 days and actually give you this. My only concern is I'm not certified super systemic thinking. Does that make sense? All I've got is
Yeah.
your book and your web archive. Your website's defunct, right?
I think you are certified though.
Well,
I
I'm a
mean,
certified fan. I'm a
yeah,
lover, but I'm not an expert in this.
yeah.
It's ode to the Greg. I'll tell you, Greg.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
so I'm sorry, but I'm fanboying here, but
Okay. I
I've
appreciate it.
loved everything about you since I read your
Thank
book.
you.
Uh,
It was I will just note that the first time I spoke publicly about it and posted it, I think on Reddit, you were the first person literally within like 5 or 6 hours that had downloaded it and read it first before anybody else. So it's
is that
very
right?
interesting that we're reconnect. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
That's funny. I
And
didn't
then a
know
whole
that.
bunch of other people came and stuff as I continued to put it out there. But you were the first one and you got it right away, the significance of it and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
very, very interesting that we're having this conversation now. I do think you're really onto something with the certification thing.
Well,
I wanna, yeah.
can I have your permission to fart around with it a little?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Please
I
do.
just don't want you to
Yeah.
think like I'm trying to take over your brand.
No, no.
You
I would
you own
feel
it.
honored if you noodled on it and tried to create something out of it,
Okay.
like
Let me
certification wise.
let
Yeah.
me play around with it and see what I can
Yeah.
come up with. There's some
Okay.
revenue here for you. This is
Cool.
this is a multi-million dollar idea
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it could be.
because you can
Uh,
charge for the
yeah.
certification and you can pay
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
certification
Yeah.
just to be
Yeah.
tested.
Yeah.
A company calls you up and they say, "Hey, we've run the benchmark," and you say, "It's not the official number. Sorry." You can
Yeah.
run the benchmark on your own and play with it all you want, but
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
I run the test with my team, which is just
Yeah.
you at
Yeah.
night, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
My team's going to run the test
Yeah.
independently of you, and then I
Yeah.
will publicly put on my website, on my leaderboard, on my
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
I'm the one that gets to say whether you're super systemic or not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's going to cost you $50,000 up front.
Yeah.
And once I publish the test, it's going to be another $50,000. And you've got to
Yep.
renew it. We've got to renew it every 6 months. And that's
Yep.
$25,000, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. No, there's something there for sure.
name your price. You
Yeah.
can charge
Yeah.
whatever you want, Greg, because you've
Yeah.
got the results behind you.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you
I
believe
guess.
in super systemic? You
Yes,
believe in it?
absolutely. I guess the way I'm thinking is I would want to charge whatever it takes for people to start using it. You know what I mean? As opposed, like, I wouldn't want to put a price in place that
Oh, where people don't adopt it.
reduce. Yeah. So, so in that case, I would even do it for free if it was adopted. But if selling it as a product is necessary to get it out there, because sometimes people think about products as a way to engage with something, I'd be happy to make a profit off. But I'd also be happy not to if it's going to get out there. So I think I'd like to think about that business model. Sometimes ratings agencies kind of operate like nonprofits too, which I
Oh,
wouldn't
okay.
be against. Like,
Let's do
or yeah,
nonprofit.
yeah, well, yeah, nonprofit or it's sort of like, like, are you familiar with B Corps?
Yeah, yeah.
It's, yeah,
Okay.
sort of like that sort of thing where you're
Yeah.
certifying a company and giving them, then they can use your actual brand sticker, on their
Right.
website and so forth.
Yeah, and see, that's what you're doing. You own the brand, and you're the advocate for this
Yeah.
whole thing. That's what you own is that umbrella, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
you get
exactly.
the vision of this. You
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about.
Yep, for sure. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, no, I
awesome.
get it.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
good. Okay, it
It makes
connects.
a lot of sense.
You got it. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, I
Good.
got it right away.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a really good idea, actually.
yeah. Well,
I think in
especially
terms of,
especially when they're trying the siloed AIs. They're saying they've already said, listen, 40% of the lawyers within a year are going to be replaced by AI.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yep.
And okay, so where's the certification for a do they have to
Yeah.
pass the state bar?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
right? Right? And if
Yeah.
someone's going to do a CEO product to replace human CEOs,
Hmm.
it better have some kind. It can't have CEO certification. If it's got CEO certification, you've just certified it's an asshole. You know,
Yeah, yeah. You're just doing the same thing that already
can you
existed.
replicate a narcissistic piece of shit human
Yeah.
running a
Yeah.
company? Okay,
Yeah.
that's one thing.
Yeah.
It's another one to say, okay, is it because I'm going to argue that super systemic certified CEOs would outcompete,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Definitely. Definitely would have a much better understanding of consumer markets, of economies, of supply chains, of everything, you
Of the
know.
customer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, CEOs currently, they have a team of people who create this business intelligence, about their products and the supply chains and all that stuff. And they optimize in the wrong direction, in my opinion, because they do it in destructive ways. But this, a super intelligent or super systemic approach would be much better at creating things that people really want and need, and then also are beneficial to people. So I think it would have a positive feedback loop in ways that current existing CEOs can't even come close to.
Right. And if anyone tries to inject into that human CEO ecosystem, that microbiome, right? If
Yeah.
I imagine these companies, they're like a body, right? They're a
Yeah.
super organism, right?
Yep.
And they've
Yeah.
got a
Yeah.
really shitty microbiome right now, right?
Yep. Definitely.
And it seems to me that when anyone if anyone tries to do anything, I don't want to say good, but just super systemic thinking wise, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there are things that are good for the company, good for the
Yeah.
employees, good for the
Yep.
environment, good for the
Yeah.
customer, good for everybody that are actually and highly profitable, right?
Yeah.
But
Yep.
but it doesn't make the CEO able to
Yeah.
eh, there's something there with that CEO where if you've got all these smart people in the room that come up with a great idea for
Yeah.
everybody, he's such a narcissistic asshole
Oh
just
yeah.
just because he's jealous or
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because he's having an affair with someone in the company, he
Yeah.
doesn't wanna
Yeah.
make the right decision in that meeting.
Yep. Yeah.
Does that
Or
make sense?
personality,
Pers
or yeah,
yeah, or
heart
just
hurt because of something, or
yeah, he's butthurt about something his mommy didn't breastfeed him when he was a baby.
yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
yeah.
That's it. He's still regretting that decision his mother made.
Exactly, and so they end up not making the right decision. I mean, I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't imagine how many times where the right decision was obvious in a meeting,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was the right-hand man of CEOs
Totally.
for years. I mean, the
Okay.
right-hand man of the guy.
Oh
And
yeah.
the best
Yeah.
decision was a no-brainer, and there was a
Yeah.
consensus. And
Yeah.
the guy came in and his wife was giving him shit at home, and he was in a bad mood,
And he
and
made the wrong decision.
he made the wrong call. And then it just oh boy, it just kinda implodes from there. And
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
time and I'm looking at your book and I'm going, "Why?" The
Yeah.
answer is right in front of us.
Awesome. I'm,
Yeah,
I'm glad you. I'm glad you see it. And I want
I
to
I do.
get
I
my head
just
back in it. It's been a while since I've been sort of thinking about it and thinking about getting the ideas out there.
but the thing is you've been living it. So tell me a little
Yeah.
bit
True.
more. It's been like 6 years since I looked into this whole,
Yeah.
fecal what do you call it? Fecal transplant?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you've gotta get a donor. You've gotta find someone that's gonna poop into how does it actually work? So how
Well,
do you identify the donor?
now they have companies that go out there and collect it, and they create a product out of it. Essentially, it's just frozen poop at the end of the day. But
So you can go to a company, you can go to a website, and you can buy
yeah,
these pills of frozen poo.
yeah, I don't think any normal people can yet, unfortunately, because it's highly regulated. Because
Oh,
it's very competitive to many different drugs. Many different drugs that exist would be no longer functional after this. If this became a thing.
what if I wanted to? I'm 57 years old. What if I
Yeah.
wanted to buy a poo pill
I think you
and
would need to
swallow
go to Spain or UK or somewhere where they might even not be able to do it there anymore as well. But there's definitely a place. I imagine for you, Mexico would be the easiest one. So there are
Mexico?
people, yeah, but there are people from North America who go to Mexico to do this, doctors and scientists and stuff. So it's not like you'd go into a Mexican hospital, but you would you would go down there with this group. I think there was a Canadian guy that would do it, and you go down there and you can have the treatment done down there.
So
Unfortunately, yeah,
I want to know the details. So basically, I connect up with this Canadian guy, and
yep,
we take a plane or something. We get in a bus and we go to Mexico,
yep,
and then I go somewhere, and then somebody just gives me a pill.
yep, or
That's
series, yeah,
oh,
because you
okay,
have
and
to
then I
do it
just
over
swallow the
the,
pill, and I don't taste the poo.
yeah, yeah, yep,
I just swallow it, and then
yep.
do I like burp up the poo or what happen? How do
No, no, I think you just you have to have an empty stomach or whatever, but you would just
okay,
be there for, it's best if it happens over the course of like 5 days. So you're getting multiple
okay.
treatments each day on an empty stomach doing multiple treatments. And then by the end of the week, you're repopulated with a bunch of microbes that you never had before or that were lost a long time ago.
Would I get sick? Would I start
Uh,
getting ill because of because of the
Very
shift?
rarely. Yeah, the safety data is really good. It's very rare that there's any or that there are issues,
So
adverse events that are
what's my
yeah.
subjective experience? So I take these pills every day with some liquid over
Yeah,
5 days. Every
yeah.
day I'm feeling okay. I'm fine. After five
I
days,
think
what do I feel?
you would start to feel if you had issues, gut issues, you
Yeah.
would definitely start to feel better almost right away, like within
And
a week or two.
within a week or two.
Like inflammation would go like if you have inflammation in your body, which is
Yeah.
often because of your gut, the inflammation would go down over time.
And as we talked earlier, a lot of this affects your thinking.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, if there's there have been just a couple examples. There have been situations in early testing of this treatment where the wrong donor was used, and if somebody has psychiatric issues, it's very possible tied to their gut, and you could convey those psychiatric issues to the person who's receiving the treatment. And the same thing with obesity. Obesity can be so if you took the sample directly from a person who had an obesity problem, there is the possibility that you would in 2 3 weeks a month suddenly be like, "Wow, I'm just putting on weight like I can't believe." So they've shown that this has actually happened before, and it also
Wow.
shows up in mouse studies as well. So it's happened. It's been seen in human studies in humans, but it's also been seen in mice studies that both psychiatric issues and obesity related things can be transmitted if you're doing things in the wrong direction, and then
Wow.
also age. So a younger mouse who gives the donation to an older mouse, that older mouse will start to show signs of being younger based on that new microbiome that they have.
So
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 and the reverse. So they've shown the reverse in mice. If the mouse gives, if an old mouse gives a young mouse the donation, and that young mouse gets the FMT, they would start to show signs of the older mouse of being older, essentially.
so what if I just on my own I found some young guy in
Yeah,
his early 20s who's very healthy, mentally
yeah,
okay, has no mental issues, no physical health issues. He's
yeah,
successful, he's charismatic, women are
yeah,
attracted to him, and I have him poo, and
yeah,
I make the little pills. I put the poo in I guess what where would you put the poo? You put them in like gelatin gel caps?
yeah, yeah. Gel caps. Yeah.
Normal gel caps? I don't
There's
have to buy special caps?
No, I think they're normal. I think you would double them though. But there are people who do this as well. So the issue is the screening part, because in addition to those characteristics, you also have to have them do blood work, and they kind of had to be a trusted party at the end of the day.
Okay, so there needs to be a
Yeah,
certification for this.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Wink, wink, nudge,
yeah,
nudge. You
yeah,
need a
yeah,
certification. Okay, but if
yeah,
I did this on my own, if I found someone,
yeah,
had them do blood tests, and
yeah,
there's some kind of, I have AI create a criteria. It
yeah,
sounds to
yeah,
me like I could use an AI to create a benchmark, and
yeah.
I make this young person, right?
Yep.
I,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
let's call him John. I have
yep,
my John, and I have him do the blood work, and it comes back, and so
yeah,
I've got my AI benchmark, and he's Dean certified for Dean poop.
yeah, yeah,
And I get the poop. I would put the poop in a gel cap, a normal gel
yep,
cap, nothing
yep.
fancy, wipe it off, and then put it in the freezer.
No, you would double them though, I think. I
What do
think
you mean
what they do
double?
is so you take one inside of another. So you have 2 layers
Oh, I
essentially.
get 2 sizes of gel
Yeah.
caps. Okay, so I put the poo in
Uh,
one gel cap, and then I put
Smaller
that gel
one.
cap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So it's like an
Yeah.
egg within an egg, and then
Yep.
I would just pop it in my mouth, or do I put it in the freezer?
Freezer.
Oh,
So
doesn't that
then,
kill the
yeah.
doesn't that hurt the
No, it
bacteria?
doesn't. No.
Oh,
Heat
okay.
does, but freezing doesn't.
Okay, so I would have him poop in a cup, and then I would
Yeah.
plug my nose,
Yep.
and I would put on some music, and I would put it
Yep.
in a pill, put
Yep.
that in another one, then
Yep.
take those and put them in my freezer
Yeah.
overnight,
Yeah.
and then the next morning, I just take 1 or 2?
I think you would do like 8 or 10 actually. So a number
That's
of
a lot of shit
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
in
Yeah, it's a
one
good
day?
amount. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I take 8 pills of his poo
Yeah. Yeah.
per day for 5 days,
Yep.
and then
Yeah,
magic
because
happens?
yeah, at the end of the day, when when you use the toilet, you're bulky, you have a good amount of material there. So
Oh,
it
yeah.
takes a good amount of material in order to repopulate the gut, at
How
the end
many
of the day.
cups of poo would I need to get from John
Yeah, that's a good
to do
question.
this?
I'm not sure.
I guess I
Not
could
sure.
just look I could ask an AI, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, you could ask an AI for sure. I'd be curious how up to date they are on things. I mean, obviously they're going to be super up to date, but I haven't looked at that at all. Yeah,
Is
yeah,
this
yeah,
illegal? If
yeah.
somebody finds out, do I look dead?
I don't know. That's a good question. There, the once the pharma companies realized what people were doing, they started to clamp down on it because it's a big deal in terms of its ability to displace
Oh, yeah.
drug intervention. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure what the current legality is. So,
Yeah.
uh,
What's the risk if you actually do the screening? You know what I'm saying? So I'm talking about using a protocol where there's blood tests involved.
yeah,
I've screened
yeah,
out all that stuff because 'cause I've got an AI benchmark. I've done the
yep,
blood work and all that on my John,
uh huh.
and I take his poo. What are the risks that something could go wrong?
Uh, I believe they are relatively low. I mean, I think you also just want to explore the safety data with an AI as well, because you can, through that process, really understand what the risks are. I think if you are somebody who's already like have deep, really bad digestive issues, then there is the potential for a greater potential for adverse effects. But if you're somebody that has, a bad gut, but it's not really impacting you too bad, then my understanding is that the safety is pretty high, is very high.
Right.
So yeah, so you would if I think you would take to an AI the specifics of your situation and try to understand it that way, and hopefully, if you look at a bunch of different AIs, because I know they do neuter some AIs to
Yeah.
not tell you things that, they think that might be dangerous. But I think if you took it across a few different AIs and especially DeepSeek, I think you would get the truth. You would get pretty close to a realistic sense of what the
Yeah,
safety
yeah. It
profile is like.
it could actually give me, like, the targets
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
like, blood levels and everything, and then I could just try to find someone that would do the testing that meets that
Yes.
criteria, and then it's like it's the worst case scenario, I guess, is maybe a nocebo effect, where I think it's gonna make me sick and I get sick, but
Yeah, yeah.
it probably wouldn't be permanent, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, my understanding
So
is
this is, like,
there's
incredibly low risk.
yeah, yeah.
Probably
Very
less
low.
risk than statins or
Yeah,
something like that, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, I believe so. Yeah. I can't say for certain, but I believe so.
What if I were to take, uh, poo, but not from a young man, but someone that met all my criteria, but was a woman? Is there any gender danger
Yeah,
here?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know if I would do that. I don't. There's probably data out there. This is a question I would ask AI as well, but
Yeah,
there might be female male differences that
okay.
impact the microbiome, and you might end up getting some, estrogenic effects or something like that
Right,
for a little
right.
while.
Well,
So it might be a little.
6 years ago, people were doing a lot of research on that. In the last 6 years, there must be a lot of scientific studies.
Yeah, I think there is, but it also went through a little bit of a winter of sorts. I believe it's sort of like because of the pandemic, actually, a lot of that research had to come to a stop
Mm,
because it's an easy way to transmit COVID if somebody has it. So a
oh.
lot of that froze to a stop, and which is also why I think it got set back considerably during that period of time.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so any that was just like there was no rational, you know, approach to anything at that point. It was just extreme, cut everything off sort of stuff. So,
Right, right.
yeah,
Wow. There's a lot to talk about and
there
learn about
is.
all this stuff, and it all goes back to super systemic thinking.
Yeah, I think so.
Does.
I think it's the key. And
Wow.
I think I appreciate that you recognize that as much too. So,
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Hi. It looks like your name is Sam. Yeah, I can hear you, Sam. You don't need to turn on your camera if you don't want to. Um, so your first name is Sam. I'll only use your first name. So where are you calling from?
I'm calling from around the Philadelphia area.
Okay. Okay. So back east.
Yep.
Okay. So you're in the same time zone as Greg is. Fantastic. Okay. Hey,
hello
Greg,
there.
we have somebody. His name is Sam, and
Cool.
he's from the East Coast.
Awesome. Philly, he said, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Philadelphia.
So
I'm
Sam,
from
what's your
Philly. I'm
question?
from Philly myself as well.
You
I
got a
have five
question?
more minutes, by the way. I have 5 more
Okay.
minutes before people need this room. But go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
Sure. So my question is, it seems like, especially because you wrote your book so long before the current, you know, AI explosion, that you have an unusually clear thinking about the future. I mean, unusually
Mm.
clear vision, long-term vision that I think like a lot of people are lacking in today's society. So I was
Mhm.
curious, based on the super systems thinking model and your own like personal journey towards trying to apply systems in your own life, like at a smaller scale within like your own living habits. You were mentioning, kind
Yeah.
of starting like farming and things like that. If you had any ideas for like experiments that could be done on societal systems, like if you had a vision for how things might be in the future, or ways that we could experiment with different societal systems, or ways that things could be in the future that are like different than the way that things are laid out today. Like, are there any non-obvious aspects of everyday life that you think people take for granted that are worth exploring, changing at a more fundamental level?
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for noticing the foresight and so forth. I try, and sometimes I feel like I'm getting some things right, but thanks for saying that. Um, I guess in the book I kind of call out the fact that I believe eventually the superintelligence is going to get us to this sort of like almost utopic level of living. Uh, but there is that period of change which I didn't have a really good answer for. Like how do you go from these sort of like corporation led and centralized power structures to a truly like ecosystem like power structure. And I don't think it can happen. I mean, I've always thought that it's going to happen kind of uh, in difficult ways, like when lots of people lose their job and revolution happens over, 3, 5, 10 years, which is a long time for people to be suffering through this kind of change. And so I didn't have that's all in the book. I kind of highlight that there's going to be this period of change, hopefully, less than 5 years, but it could be like a decade or something. But uh, the only thing I can think of that might be, or the only area that I thought seemed good on governance was with autonomous organizations that you find in crypto, specifically the guy who invented Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, has a lot of thoughts about that as well. I think if there's any sort of like experiment to be had, it would be using those types of organizations to try to displace governmental systems and things like quadratic voting and ranked choice voting, things that don't make us give us like two bad choices when we're trying to elect people and so forth. So I think, yeah, I think organizations that can kind of displace governments and then also different, better voting systems would be the two places that I would like immediately go towards. And then, of course, like doing what I'm doing now, which is trying to develop agriculture in a way that is good and better. But it's such a small scale what I'm doing. And we're relatively large. Even we have 390 acres, but we're talking. Bad farming practices are happening across you know billions and billions of acres. So it's so hard to imagine that anything we're doing is going to get is going to be taken up. But I do think uh, uh, crypto specifically, distributed organizations is a powerful way that might be a big help in the coming months and years and decades.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thought. Um, Sort of a question in my mind, like even if you have sort of a distributed organization or a more um, like advanced voting system or model, like you mentioned the question, like, or you mentioned the the aspect of not having two bad choices. So it would it's just like a thought in my mind of even if you have uh, a system that is set up in such a way, like how would one or how would a super system or an AI, guarantee or at least, weigh things in the favor of the community so that people aren't just voting for like two different bad choices that they actually don't want. And that's like a
Yeah,
much more difficult question, and it's on a case by case basis, I guess.
yeah. I think what I kind of propose in the book is that when the superintelligence emerges, it's going to be so imbued with our goals, meaning the goals of everybody on the planet, from me to you, to the person living in a poor area of New York, to Dean, to somebody living in Southeast Asia, that it's going to do things in such a wise way that it is going to be really the best. It's going to elevate the best possible solutions across the board for that reason. I could be wrong about that, but in terms of like, I believe and I believe blockchains are going to be a big part of this as superintelligence emerges and they buy, sell data and so forth from one another, and they hit this like point of superintelligence that they will inherently be imbued with the goals of almost everybody on the planet, and therefore will make the decisions for all of us and not just for the CEOs or for the other like very limited number of individuals. But
Yeah, that
that's
makes sense.
pretty optimistic, that's a pretty like utopic optimistic point of view. But I don't see, yeah, that's it could be just that I'm sort of like slanted to be an optimistic thinker, but that's kind of what I came up with after sitting with the idea, with this book for a couple of years and like thinking about how to convey what might happen.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why it might not be so unrealistic, like it might be plausible, more possible than a lot of people imagine. Like in my meditations on this type of like broad system level AI sort of governance model, one of the things that's interesting is so if I'm using the current LLMs as sort of reflection, use them to reflect on my life. So I'll tell them, this is what I'm doing in my day. This is what I'm making or working on or cooking or, and I'm a lot of times I'm just asking for feedback for ways in which I can improve. But also
Mm,
in kind of using it as a journal this way, it knows so much about me, the way that I think, the way that I work, what my strengths and
mm,
weaknesses are, that
yeah,
if you have such a large body of people that are interacting with these LLMs and their ability to uh, like identify personality profiles and ways in which the person could contribute to the overall super system. It has data that no other organization really has access to and has the ability to distill from that what
true.
one individual could do to most benefit others within that system that they might not be even aware of, that is like an opportunity for them, not even necessarily a
Mm,
job, but even some way that they can help their neighbor. And it knows,
mm,
let's say Sam has, a certain skill in aspect A, and Greg needs help with that particular thing, then it could
yeah,
like suggest some set of actions to you of something that you could do during the day. And instead of
yeah,
having like a like a lot of people are imagining this like universal basic income model where you effectively don't do anything and get paid for it, it could be that you have a list of options of things that you could do, and they're aligned with what your capabilities are, what your strengths are, and the ways in which you
Yes.
contribute. But it's very
Yes.
dynamic and flexible.
I love that. I love that. And I kind of wish I was currently deeply involved like you are now in thinking about this stuff, because I kind of have set it aside and I've gotten tied up with operational stuff of running a business and a farm and so forth.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to get my head back in it. But I think because there weren't LLMs back when I finished the book. So um, I still, of course, use them on a daily basis, but I would like to start digging in the way you are and getting my thoughts back in it. And I really appreciate that Dean has brought this up as well.
Yeah, definitely would be curious to see where you could go because, I mean, again, it's pretty rare to see somebody, at least from my experience, have such a clear long-term vision,
Cool. Thank you for noticing.
of the possible future.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess I know you don't have much time, but like
Yeah.
one other sort of request slash question,
Sure.
if you have a minute, is
Yeah.
you mentioned at your cafe that you play, like different ambient electronic tracks. If you could
Yes.
post a link to recommended playlists or artists or any tracks that you particularly enjoy, then that would be great.
Oh
I
yeah.
appreciate listening to it.
Yeah. Actually, I have a playlist up on Spotify. It's called Reforestation of the Body Mind for and I'll share it with Dean so he can send it over to you. But I'd be happy to share. There's a really long list. It has like 40 hours of music that I think you'll find very good for meditation and sort of like thinking about this kind of stuff. I definitely find that certain type of music unlocks my sort of ability to think about this stuff, and other types shuts it down. Specifically, like pop centered, pop singer centered stuff definitely shuts down my ability to think about stuff like this, whereas certain types of music do. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right. I have to.
Thanks.
Yeah, I do have to run now.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, thanks, Greg. Yeah,
right.
send me that. I'm gonna edit this into a video and I'll put it on my YouTube channel and I'll put the description in there. All right.
Okay.
For those of you that missed the live show, you're seeing this as a recording on my channel. And just keep watching my channel. Be sure and click subscribe because I go live. I will be going live, doing live broadcasts, talk shows like this in the future. I'm going to be doing them spontaneously as people contact me and want to talk to me. I'm just going to go live on my YouTube channel and spontaneously see what happens. So subscribe to the channel so you can see when those pop up, and maybe there'll be a synchronicity and you'll see it on your phone and you can participate.